I have a daughter who has OCD. Do you have any tips for me? I'm going to take a bite of my donut here before I answer that question. Pretty good. Pretty good. Just the original glaze. All right. Great question. Yeah. So, there's a variety of ways to answer this, and kind of on the Ask Randy Floyd show, we're going to stay kind of in theory mode here. We can't really go deep into these questions because we know that a lot of your situations are different, and that's something that we would have to know more about your situation. But just from a perspective of being a family member, being a mom, being a dad, what we really have to start to understand about parenting a child with OCD or anxiety disorders is to know your role. And as the parents, we always talk about we love our parents that we work with. Generally, the parents we work with are all good people and love their children. Sometimes we say they love them too much. I know that's kind of weird to hear, love them too much. But sometimes with their own love, that they don't want to see their child going through any challenges or any difficulties. And so sometimes out of convenience or comfort or whatever it might be, they just help their child when they're being anxious. And certainly as we're talking about OCD and these potential rituals or whatever that your child's experiencing, sometimes you can kind of give into those things. And for the short term, that probably makes it easier for you in the short term. But in the long term, you just have to keep doing this and doing this and doing this. And so really kind of the relief that you're getting is more of a short-term relief than a long-term relief. And probably you're thinking your goal, and I'm thinking your goal is probably to have that long-term relief. So what we really have to start thinking about is how you provide that long-term relief. And what I would encourage you to think about today would be is your own role in helping that anxiety and those obsessions and those compulsions continue. If it's something that you have a role in, so I've heard a parent say, yeah, I have to do this before bedtime, I've got to do this, or worked with someone before that they had to have their toilet paper just torn off perfectly, and they would ask mom and dad to do it because they couldn't do it perfectly themselves. And so you really have to look at that and say, okay, well, it sounds like a good idea just to go and do it, but in the end, really, you're probably just continuing that anxiety and that OCD along. So really, the goal would be hopefully to kind of talk with them, talk with your child, and just kind of start to work with them around, well, it sounds like that's the anxiety talking. And sometimes I like to externalize these issues and kind of have your child and you start to understand of how maybe we're going to do something differently than what the anxiety says. And so while at first it may be difficult, because your child probably is going to get upset and may think that you don't love them and that kind of stuff, you really have to stop doing your role and your part in giving into those rituals, and just tell your child, I love you so much, but I can't continue to do this for you because actually this is making it worse for you. Maybe making it easier, and we really want to validate that. It may be making it easier for you now, but we're going to have to do this again tomorrow or the next day or whenever else. So I really think just speaking to your child about that, and then also having them start to understand that your goal and hopefully their goal is not just for the moment, but for the long term, is for you guys to partner together and determine kind of maybe what a plan would be. Maybe it's a gradual plan where you instead of stop doing it all together, it's maybe you just kind of decrease it gradually over time, where maybe instead of if it's every day that you're helping them with the rituals and those things, maybe it's 4 or 5 times a day or a week, or if it's every day for a week, maybe it's 4 or 5 times a week. I think that's a good place to start. Certainly there are a lot of things involved in that, but just wanted to give you some thoughts on that to kind of get started. I'm going to actually put the links to all these resources that I give you in the description of this video, but this is a great book. It's a question and answer book by Patrick McGrath. So the OCD answer book, hopefully check that out. That gives you some great content in it. Another one is the OCD workbook. The OCD workbook is great. It's actually got a whole section for family members. Just talks about your role as a family member. So definitely check that out also. So the OCD workbook and the OCD answer book. I'll provide links for those in the description.